Hey there, and welcome to Rob's Custom Wood Shop. My name's Rob, and today I'm going to be building this homemade ceiling mounted air cleaner system made from a sheet of plywood and an old box fan. To start off with, I break down my sheet of plywood using the table saw. Now I've broken down full sheets of plywood on the table saw plenty of times, and I have great outfeed support, so I'm very comfortable doing it this way. Once I have my 3 strips ripped, using my cut list to mark off and label each piece, leaving myself about 1/4 of an inch extra to be trimmed off later. I put green tape on each piece that I used my Kregyaki cut guide for to help prevent tear out as I cut. Even though I have a 40-tooth blade on the saw, I still get a little bit. Moving over to the table saw, I cut all my pieces to rough length next. Next, using my cut side as a reference against the fence, I trim off the factory edge and bring my pieces to final width. Using my miter gauge, I bring the pieces all down to final length, except for my bottom piece, which is too big for the miter gauge, so I use my Kregyaki cut. I cut it and then check for square, and it's perfect. Now that all my pieces have been cut to final dimension, I can now lay out the lines for the angles on the side pieces. Here I'm using a piece of 1/2 inch plywood just to give me the correct width I need for the dados I'm putting in. So the easiest way to mark out where the angles begin for the top is to find the center and then measure out half the distance of the top, and that's where my angle will begin. Since it's 24, 11, flip it around, 11 from this end as well. The easiest way I can think of to mark this is to just use the sides, set it onto my beginning, and set it onto the other line where I want the angle to finish, and just draw a line. Now to cut these angles, I use my Kregyaki cut again. I use an old piece of OSB under these boards to protect my bench top. Now for this next step, I'm doing drop cuts and stop cuts. If you see on my fence, I have arrows marked with the lines that are going down where I need to meet them. I simply drop it on the blade, stop it where I want, stop the blade, and then flip the piece over and repeat the process, leaving me just the little tabs in the corners. Then I use my jigsaw to cut the little tabs, and just like that, I have perfectly square openings. Then I put my 1/2 inch dado blade into the table saw and cut the dados from my upright supports. Once those are completed, I install my sacrificial fence and cut the rabbets on all 4 sides of each side piece. Then I do a quick dry fit to help me cut the proper angles on the end pieces. I slowly adjusted the angle on the table saw to sneak up on the perfect fit. With a good fit there, I can now start the assembly. I'm using glue and 3/4 inch brads to hold this frame together. Believe it or not, there is a correct way to use a brad nailer. which is a mistake I learned the hard way a lot of times. So for the last piece, I'm not going to glue it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it to my box fan using some sheet metal screws. Then I'm going to screw the whole assembly in as one unit in case I have to remove or replace the fan at any time. Now to attach this fan assembly to my frame, I'm using number 6 by 1 inch screws. Now to make the brackets to hold my filters in place. I'm using spruce 2x2s, but they could be easily made from scrap pieces of 1/2 inch plywood. To make the joints for this, I'm using mitered edges. To hold the brackets to my box assembly, I'm just using glue and some 1 5/8" brads. And once the first side's complete, I just flip it over and do the other the same way. Out of a couple pieces of the cutoffs, I quickly make up a couple of holders for the filters. Next, using a brush, I apply a heavy coat of white paint and let it dry overnight. Now to prepare for the installation, I remove 2 sections of 4-foot LED lights off my ceiling, then loosen the track that they're attached to so I can insert some spacers behind them to support my air cleaner box. And for these I just use a couple of 1x2s. I pre-drill them and screw them directly into the rafters. My recommendation is if you're going to try this next step, get somebody to help you. This thing may not look that heavy, but it is awkward and hard to balance with one hand. But after I got a screw on each side in, it went no problem. And then I just need to reinstall the lights, install the filters, a little bit of cable management, and then sit back and enjoy my new filter. Now after it was up, I have to admit, I had higher expectations than what this is delivering. It doesn't quite move as much air as I thought it would, so I'm unsure whether it's going to work as well as I think it should. But I'll keep you updated to any changes I make. So that'll wrap up another project. Do you have any questions, tips, tricks, or suggestions? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, please hammer that thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe and ring that little notification bell so you never miss when I upload new content. Thanks for watching and hope to see you on the next project.